Okay, so every Pub Talk we have a keynote, and tonight's keynote is Paul Evers. Paul is a co-founder at Ben's well-known Crux Fermentation project, as well as co-founder and CEO of his newish drink company, Riff Cold Brewed. Paul has led the masses in brand strategy, design, and advertising for years. He had a hand in the branding of other local companies such as Hum Kombucha, Deschutes Brewery, and Odell Brewing, to name a few. In 2017, Paul founded Riff Cold Brewed Coffee with members of Stumptown and LinkedIn. A longtime community member, Paul played a key role in the behind-the-scenes launch of the Ben Volunteer Corps and TEDx Ben. Please welcome Paul to the stage.
Thank you, Julie. You know, I've been in Ben for about 28 years, moved in 1990, and I was just recalling with Patrick before the program that we were talking to each other back about 20 years ago when his company was off of Gasoline Alley in a very small office space, and I was operating TBD, which was a branding agency, and talking about the possibility of working together. And to hear you talk about the progress and the achievements that you've made, it's just been amazing. So I want to present you with this Riff hat. I'm sorry, Julie. Sorry about that. Riff hat. There you go. Is it the right size? I just wanted to present the, the father of roughwear with some riffwear, is what I wanted to do. Yeah. I thank you, Brian, for inviting. Where is Brian? Is he hiding now? He's right over here. He invited me to be the keynote tonight, and I was honored and humbled, of course. I have never been a keynote at Pub Talk, but I understand there's a nice reward at the end of a huge mug that gets filled automatically at every subsequent Pub Talk that you attend. Is that correct? Yes, that's what I heard. I met with Brian a couple of weeks ago to talk about the subject for the keynote, and my background is branding, and he asked me to talk about branding, and because he had always found it to be an elusive discipline or craft or art. In fact, he referred to it as a dark art. And I thought, well, maybe dark art. I remember reading the results of a Gallup poll when I was launching in my advertising career that rated professions by perceived integrity levels, and advertising was on there, and it was just below used car salesmen, which was just below politicians. It was just below about a dozen others. But dark arts is a little bit extreme, and I was wondering why you wanted me to speak about this dark arts. Dark art is it's all about persuasion or manipulation, and branding is an elusive thing. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're embarking on a new business or a new venture, and you're wondering how do we build relationships or connections with our customer base, it's a very challenging thing. So for me, it's all about relationships. I'm a relationship person. I was born the youngest of 9 children, and so I had to be. It was about survival to be a relationship person. So I'm oriented towards relationship. And so what I want to talk to you about is just my own philosophy about approaching brands with a specific focus on craft brands, because I'm a huge fan of craft brands for a variety of reasons, and everybody has maybe an understanding of what a craft brand is, and I'm just going to explain my own perception. And it's not just about craft beverage or craft beer, it's about a bigger idea. So I come from originally trade advertising. I was working for the world's largest distributor of computer products and peripherals in Southern California, and moved to Bend in 1990, so that a lot of you might consider me to be an early settler here in Bend. The population in Bend was 18,000. And they just flipped the numbers recently, 81,000. It's just easy sign, low cost of changing the signage and everything, I think. And then launched my career in consumer branding and advertising at the Mandala Agency back in 1990. And at that time, I had my own moral dilemma about being in the world of advertising and branding. And, at that time, I think it was largely about persuasion, changing people's opinions about products and manipulation. Maybe that's where you get the dark arts idea, Brian. But what really was a light for me was that was around the same time that the Just Do It campaign had come out. And it was an amazing campaign. To me, it was a hugely pivotal campaign in the history of advertising. Some say it's the greatest advertising campaign that was ever developed, because it was no longer about products and features. It was about the people who were enjoying the products or features. It wasn't about the product, it was about the people. The first commercial was a TV commercial called Walt Stack. It was about an 80-some-odd-year-old man who every day ran 17 miles across the Golden Gate Bridge. And in the dialogue, he's speaking on camera, and he says, "Some people ask me how I keep my teeth from chattering in the wintertime," and he said, "I just keep them in the locker room." And it was a beautiful campaign. And in 1995, I think they came out with Let Me Play for Nike Women. And it was about people. It was elevating the relationship between a powerful brand and the consumer. And I got to say, I hate that term consumer, because it just reduces people to the idea of consumption or buying and eating and wasting versus enjoying or something like that. So it elevated the relationship that they were establishing with their customer to something that was more meaningful. And the print ads, instead of, the year prior to the Just Do It campaign, it was commonplace to have like a double-page magazine ad was just an illustration of a shoe with lines coming off and talking about all the different technical features and benefits, or the new innovations this year, the sole technology, or the arch support, or the fabric, or the lacing, and those kinds of things. That was gone, and then it was replaced with an ad that had an image of a San Francisco skyline that was largely silhouetted, and the runner was about that tall in an ad that big, and the tennis shoe was about the size of a pinhead. So it had become nothing, and it was long scripted poetry about what the spirit of the runner was feeling. Later, so I operated or was president and chief creative director of an agency in Bend called TBD, that I'll expand on a little bit later, and had the opportunity to speak with 3 different people in person about that campaign and what was it that sparked that campaign or inspired. I'm already done. Q&A period now? No, that's something else. Okay, good. We're just going to ask questions about that. Is there a clock here, though? That'd be good for me to have. What? Okay, I'm 7 minutes into it. Okay. Thank you. Just hold that up. Okay. So I had one-on-one conversations with Dan Wyden, who is the founder of Wyden & Kennedy. This is a multinational, independently owned ad agency that really took Nike to the next level with this campaign. David Jenkins, who was the art director, worked with us at TBD later, and among others, Scott Bedbury, who was on the client side, and asked him about the inspiration behind this campaign. And what I was really surprised by was they had a huge problem in that year, and that was, so the client was giving the brief to the agency to give to the creative team, and they had this huge problem presented to them. That was, there was no new innovation that year in 1999. Nothing new to talk about. So they were like, what are we going to do? And it forced them to make this pivotal shift and try and come up with something, but it wasn't part of the original strategy to honor the customer or the spirit of the customer. It was something that they had to pull out of their back pocket in desperation. And that changed the dialogue within the advertising industry. one of the things that I love most about craft brands is craft brands establish a relationship with their customers that's well above what would be considered to be a transactional relationship. It's not about the P&L. It's about something bigger, something greater. It's about making connections and making products that mean something, that you're driven by a value system that people identify with. So you're not just providing a functional benefit, but also a deeply emotional benefit. I think most of us as human beings want to connect. And that's what that campaign did. So I did a little survey. I sent out a little survey to 50 people that I know who are either decision makers in the branding space or they're heavily influencers in the branding space. And I kept it to 50 because that makes the statistics pretty easy for me. I got a 40% response rate because 20 people responded. So it was easy for me. Kevin appreciates this because he's a numbers guy. I'm not a numbers guy, but yeah, so I got a 40% response rate. And I was expecting, one of the questions I asked was, in a simple sentence, describe what a brand is. And I was expecting there to be a lot of variability in the response, but surprising to me, it was fairly consistent. People described something bigger than a logo or a tagline or a campaign. They talked about relationship with a product and something bigger. They talked a lot about the intangible aspects of a brand. And so I found that to be really delightful. I was really surprised. And I was talking to people who are involved in some significant brands, our friends at Hydro Flask here locally, other craft beverage brands, food and beverage brands here locally, reached out to the food and beverage cluster friends, Sierra Nevada, some people back east, people are involved in significant food and beverage brands in Southern California, and everybody gave pretty much a consistent response, which was really wonderful. So I started TBD with some good friends back in 1999, and we kind of gravitated toward what we became to understand was craft beverage. But at that time, we were interested in microbrews. You remember when craft beer was called microbrew? It's not even in our vocabulary anymore, a microbrewery. And so we started working with brands like Desert Juniper Gin, which was a private label brand from Ben Distillery, and kind of working intuitively. Did the naming, package design, and thinking we need to convey handcrafted, but we didn't really know what we were doing. We were just coming up with ideas, trying to convey something that we thought would mean something to the customer. And that work helped raise the price point for that brand from like $22 a bottle to $28 a bottle. And so there was some nice validation there. And then we were invited in 2003 to restage Deschutes Brewery's brand. And we were working, again, largely intuitively, thinking what we need to do is take it away from the computer-generated graphics and kind of convey the spirit of handcrafted. So make it more organic, more looking like it came from an actual human being's hand rather than something that was created using ones and zeros. And then when we were invited to restage a brand called Odell Brewing out of Fort Collins, Colorado, they'd been around for 15 years. Some of their products were flat or declining, experiencing very little growth. And their label graphics, at that time, it was a differentiator in the beer space to have amateur-looking labels. If you had amateur-looking labels, then you were like, a verified microbrewery. And so at that point, we knew that what we wanted to do was to learn more and more about what was causing this migration for consumers away from mass-produced and over to something that they felt a more human connection to. So we started working with Dan Wyden actually referred us to a woman who worked within Wyden Kennedy previously in a department called account planning, which is a really weird name. But basically, it's a qualitative research approach that uses projective questioning and more ethnographic or anthropological approaches of observing people in environments and how they interact with products. Think, well, I'm going to skip that. Okay, so but this woman had worked on brands like Coke and ABC Family and Nike Women's, and she took on this project of working with Adele Brewing. And we went into homes, we went into pubs, we went into bars, and we talked to people about how this was in Colorado, Denver, and Fort Collins. What are your thoughts about craft beer, and what do you think about various brands? But it was more in a conversation, in an observation, in a natural environment. And we started learning about these patterns. What was the gravity that was pulling people over toward what we consider to be a craft brand? I didn't mention with the Shoots, but in 2004, when we released the new packaging at the end of March of 2004, that year they realized an 18% growth, where previous years was pretty minimal. So we knew that we had something that we were on the right track. With Odell Brewing, because we enlisted the help of researchers so we could build work based on insight rather than assumption, the growth over the next 2 years was 40% in top-line sales, with the majority of that being realized in profit margin. So they were able to command higher pricing because people understood the value of the brand because of the work that we had performed based on insight. Then we continued with other clients and conducted more research. We'd been working with craft brands over about a dozen years and conducted as many research studies. And then I think it was in about 2007, 8, this little company called Kombucha Mama is so ubiquitous in my brain. Kombucha Mama came to us and said, we understand you guys do good packaging. We're looking to do a few tweaks. And we asked them, well, what is it that you're seeking to achieve with your brand or with your company? What is the ultimate goal? And the Kombucha Mama people, Jamie, I'm sure some of you know Jamie Danica, the CEO, and Michelle Mitchell, and then Eric Plantberg, they shared this vision of making kombucha accessible to just about anybody. Their vision was a truck driver who is traveling across country, and they stop at a truck stop and they're reaching in for a beverage out of the cooler. Instead of reaching for a Monster or Red Bull or something like that, they're going to they want them to reach for a kombucha. So in 2007, 2008, I'd heard a little bit about kombucha as this vinegary drink that people were making in their kitchens. But that's what they wanted to achieve with Kombucha Mama. And we told them that we shared these insights that we had developed from research and talking to consumers about craft brands. And we started talking to them about that they needed a complete restage of their brand if they wanted to achieve that vision. And they said that they would entertain the idea. And so we said, well, we'll start with the naming. And we had everybody in the agency develop ideas for the name. We developed a brief. It was strategically driven. And I think the agency came up with something like 100 names. And we all wrote them on a big, huge chalkboard in TVD. We had a huge chalkboard. And we had them on the names, all the names up there. We walked them by the chalkboard and asked them what they thought. Then we gave them a word copy of the list of names, and they said, look, give us a few days. They came back the next week, and they said, thank you so much for all of those names. They're really something. We hate every one of them. And we still have the photo, and this is a nice challenge that Brian's given to me. Branding is very visual. I'm a visual guy, and I can't use PowerPoint or a slide projector here. It's really challenging, but I would show you this picture of this chalkboard wall, and right in the very middle of it was Hum. And they've accused me, so not of dark arts, but they accused me of performing Jedi mind tricks on them, which I suppose is a form of dark art, and talking them into, over a course of a year or so, to get them to detach from what they saw as their brand to something that was going to be more effectively consumer-facing, because it's about a relationship. I can be as interested as I want in something that I want to do, but if I want to enjoy something with somebody else, I need to be able to speak their language. Branding is a little bit like parenting. I have a good friend who told me that for him, parenting is a lot like holding a bar of wet soap. If you squeeze it too tight, it's going to escape. So you have to hold it very gently and let it be what it wants to be. Dan Wyden once told me, I asked him what his vision was in leading the development of brands and leading the agency, and he said this, and this is a multi-billion-dollar annual agency. He said, I listen to it and help it become what it wants to be. And I think that's the hardest thing to do, is that we develop these attachments to our baby, and we have a hard time of kind of letting it become what it wants to be. Some of the insights that we developed in working with research is we developed what we consider to be the 6 components of a craft brand. These are the things that are the major triggers in migrating people over to what we consider to be craft. So first is roots, or the origin story, the authentic origin story of what the brand is. Why did it become to be? Why did it come to be? What was the vision? What was the dream? Human, access to the maker. And the maker is not necessarily of the product, might be the maker of the vision or the dream or the idea. But the human, provide a human face to the brand. Community, that consumers that gather themselves around a craft brand form a tribe. If you wear a hat because you love a brewery, it's because you identify with that, and you want people to know that you identify with that, and you form more of a tribal community. And then creativity, there's always lots of surprises and excitement. So, craft brands tend to be more experimental and nimble, and it's always keeping things interesting and exciting. And in purpose, there's a sense of values that drive a craft brand. So values that are beyond showing a healthy bottom line, or not valuing the P&L more than you value your customers or humanity or the people that you're serving. And then independent, alternative to mass production. This is more made as an outcome of a human vision and a human idea rather than machines mass producing things for efficiency. So if you think about those 6 components, and most people when they think about a craft brand, they probably think small or handmade or is out of somebody's garage. I would argue that Roughwear is a craft brand. I think that you could say that Patagonia is a craft brand because everybody knows about the roots or the origin story. Everybody knows who Yvon Chouinard is. Everybody knows the purpose or the values that they stand for. And people who are true Patagonia fans feel like they belong to a tribe. So I would say that Patagonia is a craft brand. Maybe it needs a new moniker instead of craft, but that's the idea. So I've been on the manufacturing side for the last 6 years with Crux. All of these, the understanding, the insight behind what consumers are seeking were things that drove the development of the tasting room and the development of the brand and how we went to market at Crux. And it's the same things that are driving how we're building Riff. One of the cool ways that we're building a tribe with Riff is we needed investor capital to get started. And we decided to do an egalitarian approach and offer the same unit to all of our potential investors. And we have 39 individual investors investing the same amount, limit 1 per household. That's a huge objective to try and achieve. And the law firm that we've been working with, they work with hundreds of startups and mostly in tech, but a lot of food and beverage companies. They said that's a really beautiful idea, but not one of our clients have been able to achieve that. And we successfully achieved that because we want to build a tribe and not just have it build a tribe as an idea, but have it baked into the very infrastructure of our company, to have the tribal structure be a part of who we are. The last thing that I want to share is, as you leave tonight, after the Q&A, or what I like to call a dialogue, because I don't know exactly where you're all coming from or what your thoughts or your ideas are or what your needs are or your interests. But before you leave, everybody's going to get a bottle of Riff. And we didn't want to get people too jacked up right here in the room. We want to let you do that at home. So our Riff crew, we've got a really great team over here. They're going to be outside, and as you leave, you can grab your free bottle of Riff. There's 4 different varieties that you can choose from. Every one of the products is made of only coffee and water. Wonderful artisanal coffee and fresh Cascade water. You can't get any better water than this. So we hope you enjoy it. We look forward to hearing your feedback. And if you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, it's all Riff Cold Brewed Coffee. Thanks to Bobby for making that uniform across all channels. So Julie, let's have some dialogue. I get my mug.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Paul. I like the connection between riff and rough.
You like that?
Riff. I like that. Questions for Paul? Yes?
So, Paul,
Matt.
maybe without naming names, what do you think your biggest branding challenge has ever been?
What do you think your biggest branding challenge has ever been, Paul?
Okay, I'm just going to come with the top of mind answer because there's a lot to consider there. Deschutes, when we were working with Deschutes Brewery at TBD, which was the branding agency that I led, we had an assignment from Deschutes that they were going to experiment with advertising, and were looking to go into a major market where they could have an impact, and they had a set budget, and I think they had in mind they were going to do a print or radio campaign because they knew they couldn't afford TV. So we came up with this audacious idea, well, why don't we had a big brainstorming session. We really believe in collaboration. It's really not about a proprietary ownership of an idea, but let's come up with the best idea by harnessing the genius of everybody in the room. And we had this big group meeting, and we came up with the idea of a mobile pub that would take the experience out to Seattle, where they were losing share, and to help them restore this connection with their audience. So we came up with the idea of Woody, which was a big giant barrel, had a 10 keg capacity, 16 taps, and we had 1 month to pull it off, and we had very little money, and it was a super fun, stressful challenge. And I remember calling a fabricator who was doing work in LA and Hollywood, and I said, listen, we got no time, we got no money, this is our idea, what do you think? And I just knew this guy would bite. He said, yeah, bring it on. He was doing cars for XXX and all this other stuff. And when Woody came back up from Southern California, we got a call from the client who was towing it and said, Paul, we got a major problem. This thing is falling apart on the highway. And we got a big PR splash the next day. The media is going to be there. We're going to unveil Woody. It's going to be so exciting. And Kevin Smith over here and we worked through the entire night doing all the finished woodwork on the inside, had friends re-glue the big giant tap handle on the back. I was at 5 a.m. watching sunset, staining the top of Woody. And that was a big pain in the ass, but it was one of the most exciting things we've ever done. It was just amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. So that there is the biggest challenge.
That's awesome. Other questions for Paul? Where are you? Right here. Oh, there you are. Hi.
For Riff, what is your vision and ambition for the brand?
What's your vision and ambition for Riff, the brand?
Well, thank you, Eric. Our vision and mission for Riff is to scale quickly. We believe that there is some sort of short window to really own a piece of the cold brew coffee category. So scale quickly, but do it with extraordinary integrity. So the product that we have right now uses really wonderful coffee. We didn't cheapen out on that. I love some of the stories that we were hearing. It's very high integrity. We want to proceed with high integrity. We want to innovate, but iteratively in a way that preserves our sense of integrity, quality integrity. But we want to make this the most exciting craft beverage brand in Oregon and Western U.S. incrementally, and then the whole U.S. Because of the spirit that we're creating, or the sense of belonging that people will feel with Riff because of our vision based on that product integrity and innovation. So we're very aggressive because we believe the window is a little bit short, so we need to go for it.
Awesome. Great. Other questions? Yes.
So Kraft has been a thing for a while, and you really got it down about what the characteristics are of Kraft. What's the next wave? What's the next thing?
So Kraft has been a thing for a while. What's the next wave?
You know, that's what I'm going to think about tomorrow, because it's a really good question, and I really don't have the answer. It's a really great question. What is up next? And I'm just going to say I really don't feel like I have an answer for you. But yeah. I'll give you my card. Here's my card, and we'll just...
If you drank some Riff, you might be able to come up with the idea.
Thank you so much. Maybe I'll have it tonight.
Question?
Okay.
The back.
Are there any branding challenges unique to beverages?
Are there any branding challenges unique to beverages?
Yes. Branding challenges unique. Kevin, can you come up here? Bobby, can you explain that one? Can you answer that? I'm a part of a team, but what are some unique challenges, branding challenges for beverage?
I guess the multi ways to serve it, where it's not just one product or one experience. It's from package to draft. So this environment, it's not just a single transaction. It's this ongoing, ever-evolving deal where you have this beverage in multiple moods, in multiple environments, multiple times of the day.
Did you hear that? So yeah, we have a liquid that comes in many forms, and we have a lot of different targeted audiences. One is the workplace. I mean, workplaces have been providing coffee to employees, free coffee forever. Now they're going to start providing Riff. It's an amazing thing. And then you have on draft, in bars and pubs, restaurants, and then you have in package at retail shelf. So you're dealing with a myriad of audiences and different strategies. Bobby, that was great. Thank you for saving me.
Did you say IV? Did you say IV?
I didn't say IV, but I think it's a great idea. I love that. This is how innovation happens right here.
One last question from the back.
Can you buy Riff in little 6-foot kegs for home?
Yes, you
Can you buy
can.
it in little kegs for
Yes,
home?
I'm sorry. I interrupted.
That's
I
right,
was
go
so
ahead.
excited.
Yeah, you're
I
good,
didn't
you're
listen.
good.
I didn't let you repeat the
all
question.
good.
But yes, absolutely. Here's my card.
Okay, hey, let's give Paul a hand. Nice job, Paul.
Okay.
I did want to present you with this mug. You gave away my punchline, but this is a mug that we give to all keynote speakers, and you can bring it back to any pub talk, and McMenamins will fill it up to the brim. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Matt, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, EDCO. Thank you, Brian, for inviting me. And you can reach me at heypaul@riffcoldbrewed.com if you want to extend any kind of dialogue or if you have other questions.
Yeah.
Hey Paul
Hey, Paul.
at riffcoldbrewed.com. Yeah, good
Okay,
job. Hey
that's
Paul.
good. Hey, Paul.
Okay, all right.
Hey,
thank
Paul,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys have been great. Thank you.